why wealth? Like, why the pursuit of wealth, right? I think it creates options. There's a lot of us when we hear that story about, well, if you just put X dollars away per week, per month, in a couple decades, after it compounds, you can be a millionaire. For some of us, when we hear that for the first time, it completely blows our minds. That was conceptually very interesting to me. Retirement, conceptually, I think is still a very new concept to the human race. A definition of retirement is to be put out of service. I don't love that definition, and I don't love trying to like help people be put out of service. And so we redefined retirement as the option to pursue meaningful work. So to me, that ties into what you said, gets you up in the morning. Like, my hope is that through our work with our clients and planning, that we can help them retire to more meaningful work.
Let's bring in Grant White, portfolio manager,
an investment advisor. Welcome to the Finding Your Wealth podcast. What this whole podcast is about is redefining the conversation around wealth. The whole thing is absolutely a bit of a tire fire, in my opinion. I don't like drama, and this stock is surrounded by drama. All right, welcome to another episode of the Finding Your Wealth podcast. I am so excited for this one in particular because I got my good friend, Tim Goodwin. I feel like I should have a nickname for you in the middle there. Tim the blank Goodwin, but...
there we go. The curly-haired guy that visited me in Winnipeg one day in an RV and had his bike stolen. That guy.
Yeah. Hey, we're not going to talk about that, but...
well, let's cut that.
Anyway, I'm so excited to have you on, man, because this, frankly, I feel like this podcast was created for conversations like you and I have all the time. And so it's a no-brainer for us to have you on. Given that you have your own wealth firm down in Georgia, it just makes sense because I think it's kind of like getting two advisors on the line and talking about some good stuff and how we can help people out and our viewpoints on it. And so anyway, long story short, thank you so much for agreeing to spend some time with me today.
Yeah, dude, excited, big fan of yours. And yeah, there's plenty of conversations you and I have had over the years. We're like, man, that could have been recorded. That might have been helpful for to hear. So glad we're sneaking one in. I feel like we might be setting the expectations too high at the beginning for the listeners, but looking forward to it, man. I'm super, super excited to finally sync up with you on this.
Yeah, likewise. I know you can add a lot of value to our listeners, and so I'm pumped for this. So anyway, I always start these conversations off with a very simple question because, we started this whole process off by getting people to kind of quantify where they feel they are at in terms of their freedom. And for the sake of it, we define wealth as freedom more commonly on this podcast. And so what I'm going to get you to do, and I'll do the same. I'm going to, put my money where my mouth is. But I'm going to get you to just rank your freedom today on a scale of 1 to 10. 10 being completely free, utterly free. There are no constraints. You are living life, doing things exactly the way you want to. And 1 is you're loaded with constraints, so you don't get to do anything the way you want to. Mm-hmm. So anywhere in between. So with that, where do you feel you're at today? And maybe a little explanation as to why.
Yeah, so that's a great question. I would actually say that I'm probably an 8.
Oh, I love it.
I imagine maybe it'd be rare for folks to say 8, 9, or 10 to that question, but especially this year too, just being able to delegate more as my team has grown. I think you and I have talked before about the reason Elon Musk is the richest person in the world is because he's the best delegator,
Yeah.
And I'm really taking that belief to heart because I found myself really freeing up in the division of labor, helping in a tremendous way. So the example for me, you introduced me to your listeners as a financial advisor. But actually at the beginning of this year, I no longer am the primary point of contact for any clients, right?
Right.
So I've got a little more freedom there. I'm not tethered entirely to that. And then in terms of helping to run compliance for the firm, I've got a lot of help now that came into place just a couple of months ago. So that's freed me up. So yeah, I think the 8 is because I really am being able to spend a greater and greater percentage of my time in what might be called my unique abilities, right?
Yes.
But there's still room to grow, right? I still have kids that I'm running around with. I think, in order for me to really say, well, if your question was, all right, Tim, how would you increase that score? That's kind of what I start thinking about. Okay, I'm an 8, but what would it take to be a 9? Yeah. I think either when I'm an empty nester, I have more freedom, right?
Yeah.
I think if my roles in my company continue to narrow down into the things that I am more uniquely gifted at, and then I have certain goals financially too. I've already hit some goals, right? Which let you have some more freedom to do the things you want. But there are some things that I'd love to do, memories I'd love to create for my family, that I can't quite get there yet, but I'm on the way, right?
I think that's such an interesting, actually point of view, because like, I think, sometimes like our probably our clients and, people listening to this probably think that, hey, Tim and Grant got it all figured out because they're, wealth managers, or we're wealth managers, and, blah, blah, blah. I mean, we must practice what we preach all the time, which I think, I could say we do, but
so.
It doesn't mean that we're already there though, and
Right.
that was one of the things I made clear right when I started this thing is like, listen, I think it was my first episode, and like we got this clip of me saying, it's like, I'll be honest, I'm not there,
Mhm.
but
Yeah,
it's,
and I think,
yeah,
I think wealth, like why wealth? Like why the pursuit of wealth, right? And I think it creates options. It creates more options, right? And I do have more options now than what I had before. And there's a few more options I'd like to have, that I think, greater amounts of wealth would give me, right? So yeah, I think that would help me feel like I've increased my how free do I feel to maybe a 9 or a 10.
I think the definition evolves too, right? As we grow, as our kids grow, as like our businesses grow, whatever, I think our definition evolves with us, as well. So, I've been cruising at a 7 for the majority of the last year, I would say. But
Has that gone up over time to like, you just recently moved to a 7?
Yeah, what's interesting is, and anybody's caught every episode would notice that it's kind of gone in a bit of waves for me, and it's probably depending on what's going on at the time, So, so yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely gone in waves. So at some points I've been maybe closer to a 6 or maybe a 5, but maybe 6, 5. And I've been cruising kind of around a 7 for a lot of it, but actually today, I think I'm at an 8. And
all right.
It's for a lot of the same reasons you're talking about. I mean, like I've been delegating a lot more this year as well, and building on my team and trusting my team to take over more of the day-to-day type of work that needs to be done around the business. And I've added to my team, and so on and so forth. And so, like the delegation has started to, I think, pay off. Not just for me personally, but actually in client experience as well.
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
But yeah, I know, I think like, I think a lot of it has to do with, like you mentioned, your family. I mean, I think a lot of it, my freedom actually ties back to my family as well. So like when my 2-year-old Max isn't sleeping at night, and, we're just all sleep deprived and not, whatever, we're just running on empty, then I mean, like freedom tends to go down a little bit.
Oh yeah.
Don't have the gas in the tank, but
yeah, it's not, that's funny too. It's not like, well, I'm so busy, so I don't have the freedom. It's I'm so tired, I can't do the things I want to do. Right? Yeah. When you have little ones, that's a real thing. That's a real thing.
Well, it's like, yeah, it ebbs and flows. We got, like, hey, anybody with family would understand that. So it's like, yeah, it's not all, it can't all be perfect all the time, right? You do your best. So, but yeah, no, right now I'm at an 8, and that's actually, we're still having musical beds at night with the kids, but, but I think we're just growing into comfortability with that. And I think one of the things that I think I want to get into with you a little bit is like communication with your spouse, your partner around that too.
Yeah,
because
sure.
Sam and I are having a lot more conversations more recently, because I think we've freed up our mind space to have some conversations around
exactly
what life looks like and
capacity.
So
it's a dream.
Yeah. So anyway, what I want to ask you next is then, like you're cruising at an 8 right now, which is awesome. But how do you define that wealth? And more in particular, like how do you and Maureen define that wealth? Your wife, your partner.
Yeah. We took some time a couple of years ago, and we kind of like, what does wealth mean to us? And to me, it means I'm sitting on my porch with my wife. We're sharing a cigar, maybe a whiskey, maybe a glass of wine, and we're watching our kids play in the yard, right?
Yeah.
Like to me, that, is like a definition of wealth that I really related to. Now my kids are older. They're, 2 of them are in high school. One of them's, dual enrolling with college. So they're not really playing in the yard so much like they used to, right? But if you go back to that image, I was trying to unpack like why that feels so wealthy to me. Well, one, my kids are playing in the yard. Okay, so they're playing. That means they're carefree. That means they're not at school. they're not having to work. And that means that they're in a yard that promotes play, right? They feel safe. And so not all kids have that around the world. You know what I mean? And then for me, if I'm sitting down doing a finer thing in life, a cigar and a glass of wine, well, I'm not working, right? And I've got the freedom to stop working for a little bit during the day and watch my kids. And I've got a good enough relationship with my wife that I want to catch up with her and hear about her day. And we're able to we have a relationship where we can enjoy each other's company while we're kind of enjoying the finer things in life. And so I'm also very grateful to have a wife that will share a cigar with me, which is super cool. Probably not all spouses share cigars, but I think that's one definition for me of wealth. It's probably changing and evolving a little bit more now, but it's just kind of a cool little image, I think.
I like it. I mean, I like that you actually put the visibility on the physical personification of what that means out there.
Yeah.
I think that's hard to do for a lot of people, actually. I mean, we try to, help our clients do that, and people we work with, and even conversations we have, it's just like, what does that look like? Because I think once you can visualize it, it becomes a little bit more tangible to you at the same time. And I think there's actually evidence that you will actually do the things that are needed to help out future Tim. If you can, if you can see it. Like, I think Harvard did a study on that years ago.
Interesting.
But I like that you do that, because I don't think a lot of people do that. And anyway, I think that's interesting. I know your family, and I have the benefit of knowing you guys a little bit here, and understanding how important your girls are to you. What have your girls taught you about wealth as you've been raised?
Yeah. So yeah, that's a good question to unpack. So I don't know. I know you and I, me being from the US and you being from Canada, sometimes you've got access to things I don't have access to. I have access to things you guys don't have access to. And so I'm not sure. Have you ever heard of this app called Greenlight? And it's also got a debit card tied to it.
Yeah.
So that's one way that we have really been able to kind of intentionally have money conversations with our girls. So I started a long time ago. It may have been 7 or 8 years ago now. I started paying them their age per week to do a job around the house, right? Yeah. So you get a raise on your birthday, and it's a $1 raise for every week, right? And what's cool about this app called Greenlight, it's not free. You pay like a subscription fee, but they actually issued each of my girls a physical debit card, right? And it has a PIN number. So I had to teach them about a PIN number and how to memorize the number. And then, their age per week goes into that card, just as long as they did their chore. But they also get to choose how much goes to save, give, and spend, right?
Yeah.
So they can allocate that.
Yeah.
And so we can do parent paid interest on the savings. The giving ties to any like nonprofit 501c3 they use the card in. And then you can actually start investing. So they start buying stocks in it, right? So
cool.
I'm getting to answering your question, which is because we have that, we end up having quite a bit of financial conversation. And I learned a lot from my kids, right? About how they're thinking about money. Really, what's interesting to me is to see their money personalities, right? Like I've got one that just spends it and is talking about pennies and just little small amounts of dollars that are left in the spend account. I got another one that just won't spend a dime anymore. Now my older daughter has to save up a little bit every month to help contribute towards her car expenses and things like that, right? So, and then I've tried to do this experiment where I'm really talking to them more about wealth, creating wealth, and managing wealth than my parents did with me, right?
Interesting.
It's an experiment. I don't know if it's going to be a better thing or not. We don't always talk about hard dollars, but we do talk about giving. We do talk about how to earn and how to manage money.
Cool. Interesting. We it's funny. We just had a conversation just earlier today about, I was chatting with, one of the women that works here, and she's quite a bit younger than me, let's put it that way. But, talking about like our first jobs, and now she's been independent, like on her own kind of thing since she was 18 years old, moved out at 18, was paying rent, so that's pretty young compared to most people today, I think I moved out around 25, because I went to university and yada, yada. But we were talking about our first jobs, and I'm like, yeah, like I remember being like 7 or 8 years old And like we grew up in this town. I grew up in this town outside of Winnipeg called Headingley, and I walked through the bush. There was a market gardener next door, and I went there and asked for a job. I don't even think my parents even knew I went. I think I just went there because I don't know. I had this aluminum can that I saved money, and I just like seeing it grow. I didn't even know what money was for, but I just like seeing it go.
So I gotta get some.
Yeah.
Later.
So I remember going there at 7 or 8 years old and doing that, and then getting a job for $20 a day and whatever. But you just reminded me of like those first like money lessons that we get and how influential that can be. And so my dad was a financial planner for like 35 years. So I remember the conversation around the table where it's like, hey, if you save X amount of dollars per month, you'll be a millionaire by the time you're whatever age, right? So that was pushed into me at a young age. Again, not knowing what the value of money really was. I'm just like, oh, well, money's important, so we should do something with it. But I think those conversations, because of tools like what you're talking about, what was it called? Greenlight?
Greenlight. Yeah. And the idea is like you can greenlight an expense for them because you can reimburse their Greenlight card really fast or set aside so much per month for gasoline or whatever. But, it's really cool because now they're getting into stocks. And like they like to talk about their stocks more than anything because we moved that money they stuck into savings into this brokerage part of Greenlight. And now they've bought some individual stocks. One of them bought NVIDIA pretty early, so it's hard to beat her. So, but yeah.
She should be telling you what to do, maybe?
Apparently. I'm like, maybe come pick stocks for the firm. Yeah, you're doing great, So it's funny the emotions tied to it. I think the other thing is, just, when they're little, you're buying their things, but now when they're earning money and they're at Target and they ask for this, Maureen would be like, well, did you bring your Greenlight card? Do you have any money on your Greenlight card? And even if they did bring their Greenlight card, and even if they did have money on it, most of the time they wouldn't want the item if they had to buy it. And so I think what they quickly learn is about money being finite. Right. It's been infinite up to this point because mom and dad will, if I can just convince them, they're going to buy this thing for me. Right.
Yeah.
That's all they had to do was persuasion. And so we used to give them coins and dollars, help them count and help them feel the tangibleness and know the different denominations of our currency. But I realized we were doing them a disservice because when it's digital, it tends to feel infinite. And so you really got to look up that balance and know that if you run that card, that the balance is lower until you make more money. It's finite. It's going to go away.
Well, that's the reality of our world today too. I mean, like, the physical
right. That's what we're trying to prepare them for as parents, right? Trying to prepare them for the real world. So I think as they get older, we'll continue to try to shift more and more expenses through the Greenlight so that they can actually not go from not having to worry about any bills to all of their bills at once after they get done with college or whatever, right? Or leave the house. It's like, okay, well, you're going to start covering this bill and this bill and this bill. To learn how to manage it.
Do you remember your like first money memory, like where you kind of like started to figure it out? Like you mentioned you wished your parents had maybe taken a different approach with you, but do you remember
I don't know that I remember my first money memory. I grew up, my dad was in seminary when I was born. And so he was an Episcopal priest, actually. So my dad's been a pastor my whole life.
Yeah.
And so, preachers aren't really known for making a lot of money, right? So money, we had what we needed, but we didn't have a lot of what we wanted. So, a lot of my overall memories were around probably a limited amount of resources and a limited budget growing up. But I mean, one of my favorite things was when I borrowed $100 from my parents and bought a lawnmower when I was 13. And then I would start mowing lawns. People don't usually hire you at 13 years old, right? But you kind of have to hire yourself. And my parents didn't have much money to give me, so I had to go figure out a way to earn it. And so, I mean, it's funny. I'm glad I lived in a neighborhood where the homes were kind of close together because then I could, push my lawnmower down the road to reach more homes. But that was my target market, was how far I was willing to push the lawnmower down the road. But, for a 13-year-old to commit a whole Saturday to mowing yards and then I could make like $200 or something was crazy. Just felt crazy. So I think early just getting that, like, man, if I really am determined and I work hard, I actually can make some substantial income.
Yeah. Okay. I'm laughing a little bit because like one of my first business ideas didn't get very far. My dad shut me down pretty quick. But it was a lawn care company. And And so, just to picture this, like we grew up on this 2 acre lot in Headingley. We had riding lawnmowers up until the point where I'll throw my brother under the bus, until the point my brother forgot to put oil in it one day and seized the engine up. And so my dad, as punishment, decided to buy us 2 push mowers to mow 2 acres, and it took us about 5.5 hours or something like that to complete it off Saturday. But out of that, I'm like, cutting lawn sucks. I hate cutting lawn. I actually don't mind it now, but I hated it back then. And I'm like, well, if it sucks for me, it sucks for everybody. So I'm going to create a business around it, and we're going to create this great experience and blah, blah. So I went as far as to create these flyers, and I put them up on the mailboxes and stuff like that. So my dad was getting the mail one day, and he's like, sees this flyer, and I'm offering, like, we got all the equipment, we're bringing the gear. And really what I was doing was offering all my parents' gear up to I'll cut the lawn, but I'm offering all the gear. We'll bring it to you. Right. And my dad's like, well, you don't have any gear. I have all the gear. I have all the So
yeah, it's one of your first memories is realizing what is yours is not yours. It's your parents, and not just because it's your parents, it's not yours, right?
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, first lesson learned on that one. But so what brought you into wealth management then? I mean, you had a bunch of different, like, your dad was a preacher, as you point out, and
right.
You grew up in that. What brought you into the world of like money management, wealth management?
I think, so obviously being a PK, we went to church a lot, we went to youth group, and I had a guy that would drive me to youth group, older gentleman who was a very successful businessman. And church wasn't super close to our homes, which is why he was driving me. And so he would start telling me about his business and his employees and all this stuff. And I was like super inspired, really looked up to him. And so that was really he fanned that flame of entrepreneurship that I had since I was young, doing the lawnmower thing at 13. Now I'm in high school. He's taking me to youth group. He's kind of talking to me about running business, and I'm like, man, that's cool. When I grow up, I want to be like Bill. So I went to school, and I did change my major a few times, and eventually I made it to finance, and things started clicking. You know what I mean? Like, I was a decent student, but when I got into finance, I was like, yeah, come on, this is what I'm talking about. I got involved in a student club at school where we were learning how to make money investing somebody else's, trustee had set up a brokerage account. This student run club could fix stocks for real. So that was super cool. And then I worked for a kind of a family friend that had started a financial services firm. And he had offered me a job right out of school if I got a finance degree. So that was very motivating. So, but when I started working there, I was learning a lot of different business models, and I got my license, and then I realized the guy I was working for wasn't licensed. He wasn't registered. And I just had a gut check. My morals and ethics were like, we got to get out of here. This guy's in a lot of trouble. And he kept saying, oh, I'm just managing money for friends and family. It's an exception to licensing and registration. I'm like, that's not a real thing. That's not true. That's wrong. That's a lie. So anyway, I left just because I thought this guy was going to destroy my career before I even had a career, 9 months out of college. But, with the entrepreneurial spirit, some new ideas around how to build business models around financial services, I ended up having a lot of friends and family that were like, Tim, you don't have kids yet. You just got out of school. Like, now's the time to take a risk and start a business. So, I really got handed to a couple of friends and family that literally wrote me checks and helped me, turn an idea into reality. So 22 years old, not even a year out of college, started my wealth management firm out of my spare bedroom with a Pope prayer and a fax machine that doubled as a phone. So that's where it all began right there. My first 2 accounts is my dad had $100,000 rollover, and my friend from college had a $5,000 brokerage account. So that was the starter with $105,000 and two clients to get there. So now we're just about to cross, we're right around 400 million. So
amazing. So you got interested in the finance. What about finance? Was it the investing side, or what about finance kind of tweaked your interest or piqued your interest?
So you kind of mentioned it before, and there's a lot of us when we hear that story about, well, if you just put X dollars away per week, per month, in a couple decades, after it compounds, you can be a millionaire.
Yeah.
For some of us, when we hear that for the first time, it completely blows our minds, right? And we learn about this kind of passive, like, I work hard for this money, but I work hard not to spend it, and I put it somewhere else, and something else makes it grow, then my effort, like, and Albert Einstein said compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. Those who understand it use it. Those who don't pay it, or those that understand it earn it. And so I think that was conceptually very interesting to me. And then I was mentioning earlier, like kind of growing up in the faith and Christianity and church and all stuff. And I just felt like people felt like they were trying to do stuff, but the funds weren't always there. Like the resources weren't there for all these big dreams and hopes they had. And I was confused. I'm like, God owns all the money. Why? Like, what's the big deal? Why isn't it coming to you? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So maybe you got this wrong, but I don't know. But as I went to school and I learned that, like, one, like folks just don't pick the right investments, or they get out of them at the wrong time. Or they're in investments that are super expensive or too risky, right? And so all those bad decisions would erode their ability to build wealth.
Right.
And so, like, running into people who couldn't retire and they were really old or had hopes and dreams to do things, or they had a job that they hated, but they only kept it because of the income or the health insurance. That's what started kind of just breaking my heart. Right.
Yeah.
Or that, you and I will get into this, and you know this more about me. Generosity is such a huge part of, what I think is critical to somebody's happiness, right? And success in life. And then people say, oh, I can't afford to be generous. What do you mean? So I think those are the things that kind of broke my heart about people and money and their investments. And so to be able to come in and help them make better investment decisions, cheaper investment decisions, less risk, better performers, investing at the right time, not the wrong time, and, giving them the ability to maybe have excess so they could be even more generous in the future. Those are the things that kind of initially drove me.
Yeah. I mean, I know there's a reason why we're friends. I knew this before, but I think this is where you and I have so much in common is like, I talk to a lot of advisors, and then, sometimes the common answer, I should say, that I hear is like, why you became an advisor. It's like, oh, I just really liked companies. I liked like the stock market and stuff like that.
Right.
And my next question is always like, well, what about that? What about that and investing and all that stuff? What about that? And I'll be honest, most of the answers don't go much. There's not much depth behind it other than that. But when I talk to somebody like you and it's all about, no, it's not necessarily like investing. I mean, hey, I like reading about companies too and learning.
Super cool.
Too.
Yeah. It's super interesting. Yeah.
But I think what's so much more interesting is the impacts that can have on people's lives, and exactly what you're talking about. You're at the church groups and they have all these dreams and plans.
Right.
And it's like, well, why aren't we executing? What can't we do? Oh, we don't have the resources. I'd love to be generous, but I don't have the resources. I don't have this or that. It's like, well, let's get the resources.
Because I'm like, the resources are out there. Let's go get them.
Yeah. But then you're right. And you dive deeper and you realize that like, it's like people want to, but they just don't know how, or they just need a better guide or you name it. Right. And so
that's right.
So, and that's why we're here.
Better guide. And I think you and I too, we picked up real early on that there are better business models in financial services than some others. Right.
Yeah.
And when you're paid a commission to advise somebody, you have an internal conflict of interest, because how do you not sell them the product that pays you the highest commission? So if you can get away from that commission sales and you are monetarily motivated to act in the best interest of the client at all times, that has so much power, especially over decades, right? You're always in the same corner. You're winning and losing with your client in real time. And it helps you be that fiduciary that act in the best interest of your client. It sounds like all noble, but I'm like, well, just look at how we're paid. The way we're paid lines up with just being a fiduciary. If I should have sold that investment, I would have already.
Yeah.
If I should have bought it, I would have already.
Yeah.
Because if it's in your best interest, it's in mine, just because the way compensation is aligned with how well your assets grow over time. If I should have bought that cheaper or more expensive investment option for you, I would have done it.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that's a beautiful aspect of the timing of coming into the business, and that this kind of way of doing it was a new but acceptable way to do it.
Right.
It is better.
I mean, you don't get to where you are or where I am for that matter without being passionate about the actual work, the impacts you can have on people's lives. I mean, it's like you and I could both do lots of different jobs and make lots of money. But there's a reason why we chose this. And I like to describe it as like, when I think about like why I get up in the morning and why I do what I do, it's like, one, I want to inspire people to live a life of their dreams and freedom beyond what they thought was possible. And that's two, I want to build companies that remove, and actually had a good chat with my coach last week or 2 weeks ago about this. But I want to build companies that remove the unwanted constraints that get in the way of it. Because some of those constraints are wanted, actually. Like it's like you can't just enable somebody. And I think about this with parenting. It's like you can't just give them everything because then they don't learn how to do it themselves,
Right.
But yeah, we want to build companies that take away the unwanted constraints that get in the way of them living that life of freedom. That's why I get up in the morning. So when I think about all the things I could be doing, I mean, that could be a lot of different things. But wealth management in particular has a great exponential impact, your ability to be exponential in those impacts and helping people to do that. So
that reminds me, like, it's interesting because like, it seems like so much of our business around retirement, and I think some of that is just the nature of like the tax code, because they're called retirement accounts, right? And then this concept around retiring and our Social Security Administration saying, hey, you get this kind of public pension once you get this old and you've contributed for so long, blah, blah, blah. Like there's this kind of interesting concept. And, as far as my research shows, retirement conceptually, I think is still a very new concept to the human race. I think it was like in the 1880s that it's really started showing up, So this concept of a definition of retirement is to be put out of service, like retiring a baseball bat or jersey, right? To put out of service, right? But like, I don't think God ever invented humans to be put out of service. And we really weren't bought into that concept before 1880. Yeah. And so, your retirement plan of old was having a lot of kids to take care of you when you got too old to, keep working in the farm or whatever, right? So, but I don't love that definition, and I don't love trying to like help people be put out of service. So it like really messed me up to realize like the dictionary definition of retirement is not something that I want to be a big promoter of. Right. So we redefined retirement as the option to pursue meaningful work. So to me, that ties into what you said, gets you up in the morning. Like my hope is that through our work with our clients and planning, that we can help them retire to more meaningful work, whether that means they're leaving a job they don't love and transitioning to a different job. Maybe that doesn't make as much money, or maybe that doesn't have the health insurance benefit, but we can help them bridge that gap before Medicare starts. Or maybe it's like, hey, we can help them retire sooner than they thought. Now they can do nonprofit work, or now they can do this, this hobby, work with the grandkids or volunteer at church or whatever. Like I'm always trying to get them, regardless of whether they're in their 20s or in their 80s. Well, how can we get you so that your time and your resources are put into more meaningful work for you?
I love that. Because I've had that same challenge. I mean, I think retirement's become a product. It's a product sale. And I don't have the exact stats, but I think in Canada around the 40s and 50s, a whole bunch of these retirement accounts were created, and then it changed like what people were actually shooting for. Basically, it was like the retirement freedom 55, things like that. But I think that's actually working against living a fulfilling and a life of freedom, because if you look at there's this documentary, I think it's called Live to 100 docuseries on Netflix, and it's all about these blue zones in the world, and it's like these areas in the world, right, where there's a higher concentration of centenarians. Long story short is one of the keys to living a longer life, but also more fulfilling life, was purpose. And the concept of retirement or being retired, in most cases, in a lot of cases anyways, removing that purpose that somebody's like built throughout almost their entire lives. And if you're taking that purpose away, I mean, the stats show, I mean, a lot of people, I don't know, I can't say most, but a lot of people pass away within a few years of retiring. And I think I don't have the stats to back this up, but I think there's probably a good correlation between like removing a purpose and then what happens to people after that. And so
Americans are the same. I read a stat years ago that, and I don't think they kept redoing this research, but it was that on average, our retirees stop cashing their checks 29 months after Social Security starts. Why they stop cashing a check? They die. 2.5 years later, they died. And I think one thing we've talked a lot about around here in our firm is you can't just define what you're retiring from. You got to define what you're retiring to. Like, you're trying to get away from this bad situation, but you've got to convince yourself there's a better thing, right? So like the vision of the future, you only want to go to the future if you're envisioning a better future. Yeah. Right. And so if you just retire, and again, work is meaningful, it's purposeful, it's fulfilling. And so you just completely cut that off and go golf and garden full time. After about 2-3 weeks, you start to go, is this what it's all cut up for just on the rocking chair. I'm just going to sit here and watch TV all day long. It's not meaningful. You know, you got to get up and still like serve other people. And maybe you don't have to make as much money as you once did to serve other people. So go serve other people in a way that's meaningful to you, because that's really going to give you life.
I think that's a good, I think this is a good time to talk about service. And what does the community and giving back mean in terms of your own definition of what wealth means to you?
So,
and before you answer that, like, actually, let me bring up, because I know African Girls Hope Foundation, you're a board member there, right? You've talked to me about it. I know you and Maureen have done some trips together, I believe, for it as well. So you know, I'd love to hear more about that as well in the context of this. But yeah, maybe like let's start with what you think about the definition, why it's so important, and then I'd love to hear more about that as well, the foundation.
Whew. All right, listeners, get locked in. It's going to take 2 hours for me to answer. So True Kathy, he founded Chick-fil-A. The fried chicken, you know, franchise is so popular, especially for me here in the South. And he wrote a book. I mean, he died a billionaire. Okay. But, you know, was born into poverty. He wrote a book called Wealth Isn't Worth It. And basically, just to sum up that whole book, True Kathy said, wealth is worth it only if you give it away. Right. And so I've always just had a dream of being just a traveling philanthropist. I think, like, how cool would it be to give money to all these places and then to be able to go see it firsthand, to be able to kind of encourage and refresh the workers, to see firsthand what's going on, so that I'm not trying to get to something that I think would help, but really won't help, maybe would hurt. So, you know, Grant, you recall that Maureen and I just went to Nairobi, Kenya last year to meet some of the girls on our scholarships. And so these girls are refugees. They may be completely orphans, or maybe their mom's a widow, or maybe who they call their mom's not actually their mom. It's their aunt or a friend who's just literally filled that role of their mom. But in Africa, school is not free. And so it's private school for everybody. And there's still a bit of a caste system going on. So guys, they're going to get, you know, the limited resources first to go to school before girls. And especially if that girl's, you know, an orphan, who's paying for her school. If she's a widow, the mom's working all the time just to put food on the table and a roof over their heads, right?
Right.
So that's where African Girls Hope Foundation comes in. We provide like full scholarship, and we do everything, right? We give them a mentor, we give them uniforms, full tuition, and then we keep tabs on them. And these girls, they're going to change the world. They're so incredible. It's still a very new nonprofit. There's about 250 girls on scholarship, and it was started by a founder, a refugee who escaped. Her whole village got genocide, like murdered by this group, but her and her family got out and literally like traveled through the woods in the jungle for days, made it to Kenya, got as a refugee, and then she got a scholarship and went all the way through college, and then came to the US. And so then she started African Girls Hope Foundation to pay it forward for somebody that paid it for her. So yeah, man, so cool story there. There's obviously other nonprofits that my wife and I are involved in. As a family, we do that together. So we talk about the nonprofits we give to, and I really listen to what resonates with my daughters. And my youngest daughter, for example, just loves animals. So I was like, okay, I wouldn't normally get into the local animal shelter, but we do. And then they send us a cute little handwritten note with puppies on it. So anyway, we're enjoying that. And then as a company, we also want to our mission is, you know, leading people to financial peace, independence, and generosity. So generosity is part of our mission. How do we lead by example? We set aside 2% of our revenue to reinvest back into the community.
Nice.
So, yeah. And you know, for my clients, like I'm not requiring my clients to be generous. You know, I hopefully we're inspiring. Hopefully we're leading. If they'd like us to be part of the conversation, we can talk about cool ways to save taxes and to give appreciated securities to your nonprofits instead of cash or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know, I like force my clients to be generous, but we like to bring it up because ultimately I find that the folks that are generous are happier than the ones that aren't. Yeah.
I think, you know, through conversations that we've had even on this podcast, I think like it's almost a crucial component to living that life of wealth or true wealth and freedom.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly think so. And I certainly know that the people that we've talked to that I think are living that life, it's like a consistent thing. It's like that. Well, I know you talk about like Maslow's hierarchy, and I know you've got your version of it.
Yeah.
But it's like, once you get to that top level of the pyramid, I mean, that's where you find that true peace and freedom.
I think
in
so.
life,
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I when I see people like you and the work that you're doing, but also like not just in the business, but in like in the community as well. I'm like,
Right.
yeah, I mean, that's a component. One thing I want to key in on though is I love that you have the conversations around the dinner table about it. And then you take the feedback and hear what they're interested in, and then you
Yes.
incorporate that. I think that's such a special thing to do. That's great.
Yeah. Well, and I'll be a little vulnerable here on your pod. So a couple of years ago, my oldest daughter said, "Hey, there's this group called Embrace the Journey, and they're there to serve parents whose kids are coming out or struggling with gender identity issues, like the LGBTQ plus community. Like that's what this group Embrace the Journey's for. It's just to connect these parents so they don't feel alone, and they can have these conversations with each other to walk through." And they literally wrote this book called Embrace the Journey, and embrace what's happening. Like, it's okay, love on your kid and have conversations, right? So my oldest daughter, she thought that was just the coolest thing. So we started giving to this organization. Well, little did I know that, one of my daughters was going to be struggling with identity, right? And so now we're one of the parents that's connected to this nonprofit who is benefiting from getting to be their services and getting connected with other parents and reading material and having discussions. It helps me not feel crazy. It helps me not feel alone. It helps me put words to things. And we knew about this organization because one of my daughters brought up, and we'd already been giving to them for a year or two. So that's pretty cool.
That's super cool. I mean, I love the full circleness of that whole
right
moment, right? Or moments, really ongoing moments. I love that. But like she was probably telling you in her own way, like this is something that's important to me, right? And man, credit to you guys because you were open to it. You're already having the conversations. You're open to it.
Absolutely.
So yeah,
but also like that my girls are shrewd too, because there was like one nonprofit we were given to, and they would never send any updates about what they were doing.
Yeah,
we were asking. Like there was no newsletters, no communication, and my girls were like, "We need to cut them off, Dad. Let's fire that nonprofit." And I was like, "All right. We're going to fire the nonprofit. We don't know if they did a good job or not because they wouldn't tell us." So
ruthless, but I like it.
I know. Ruthless. And then there was this other one. They're like, "Man, Dad, they do a good job. Should we give them a raise?" I'm like, "Yeah, let's give that nonprofit a raise."
I love it.
That's what we do. At least once a year, it's kind of like, are we going to fire a nonprofit? Are we going to add a new one? Or we're going to give anybody a raise? Yeah. So that's been fun. That's a fun little combo we have once a year. Right. Usually between like Thanksgiving and Christmas, we usually have it.
I love it. We talked a little bit about this, but like, you're a very thoughtful leader from what I know of you, and I believe you are. You're a thoughtful leader who has helped to mentor you along the way as you've kind of gone along, and like who's had like the most influence on your way of thinking as it relates to, again, your ideas and definition of wealth?
So there's certainly the folks that influence us that we never have gotten to meet, right? The authors, the speakers, the podcasters, right?
Yeah.
And then there's the folks that are around us that we could choose to call a mentor, right? And build a mentor relationship with. So I definitely have that, and I've been very intentional about setting up, one of my assistants helps me schedule lunches with my mentors, So Bill, the guy that I mentioned who drove me to youth group when I was in high school, he's one of my mentors.
Yeah.
And so they just celebrated 57 years of marriage in Zermatt, Switzerland a couple of weeks ago. I mean, he's so cool. And then there's been other folks that I've met. Dale Alexander is another one who was kind of in my business, you know what I mean? So like he was in financial services. He sold his business. He's an author. He's a speaker, inspires young students. And so there's a couple of folks like that I like intentionally put myself around. Cause right? Like you've heard the quote, like your income or you are like an average of the 5 people closest to you. So go find some people that are way ahead of you. Right. See if you can buy them coffee or lunch. I mean, it's, do what you can to get around them. So, but I think as far as like leaders, like you talk about being a thoughtful leader, Andy Stanley, read a lot of books by Andy Stanley, John Maxwell. I used to fall asleep listening to his 21 laws, irrefutable laws of leadership on a cassette tape in college. I would like play it in my Walkman and just fall asleep listening to it. Like, so nerdy, dude. So nerdy.
That's awesome.
So then Patrick Lencioni's probably my favorite. Like,
Okay.
favorite. He's the one that wrote like 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, but he also wrote a family book called The 3 Questions for a Frantic Family, 3 Big Questions for a Frantic Family.
Yeah.
So he runs the Table Group, which is like a consulting group for C-level. So he's really funny too. So I've heard him speak, and he's a phenomenal speaker. So I think I would say those 3 authors, and I would say, you know, a couple mentors that, you know, just, you know, have come into my life, and I decided to be intentional about not letting them, like, they got to stop here. They can't just go through. And once upon a time, I knew Dale. I'm like, man, Dale's right here. How do I stay connected to Dale? So I either invite him into my investment committee or serve on a board with me, or I have a recurring reminder from my assistant to schedule lunch with him once every quarter or something.
I think that's like, you know, another common trait that I don't know if it's been everybody we've had on the pod, but a lot of them are very intentional about reaching out to other people and like having those conversations and asking questions and being open-minded to those answers as well. So I'm not surprised to hear you rattle off a bunch of names, being like, and you have a process around building lunches or getting lunches and stuff like that. Because I do the same. I mean, I think it's like, hey, like a lot of people just think, like, oh, they won't have time for me, so they never call. And it's like, no, you'd be really surprised. One, if they don't have time for you, then screw them. Like, you don't need them in your life. But
That's
most people that are like-minded, like to us, like I take those lunches. I get university students asking me, you know, for all the time.
reverse the script, right?
Yeah.
If somebody's, like you just did. What if somebody's calling you and saying, hey, Grant, I would love to spend time with you. I would love to give to your advice. I would love to learn from you. Can I buy you coffee or lunch one day? Like, is there anything else you would rather do that day? Like, that's going to be your favorite part of the day when you go home to tell your spouse, totally, your significant other, how was your day? You're going to be like, you know, I hung out with this university student. They asked me these questions and we got super connected. And I think, you know, hopefully I get to help this person. And I really enjoyed that time. Right. So yeah, I wouldn't be bashful about it. I will say that, you know, those are some like heavy hitters for me over my 20+ year career.
Yeah.
And as far as like, hey, Tim, what books do you recommend? Or who do you recommend to my mentor? Like, I think it depends on your stage of life. And so I would look at your stage of life and then maybe 5 people around you that are at your stage of life, but you want to be where they are, and then ask them what they're reading. Like you talk about, you know, you have a 2-year-old at home, right? Like maybe parenting toddlers is a top priority for you and Sam, right? Mm-hmm. So like we were reading more parenting books back then and meeting with folks who had really well-behaved kids. Yeah. And we would say, how'd you do it? And we would read books about how to have well-behaved kids because that's what we wanted. I'm not doing that right now. I'm not reading books as much about parenting or talking to my kids as my mentors as much about how to parent. It's other topics because the stages of life change. Right?
Totally. I'm always looking forward though too, because like I've got a few mentors in my life, and I'm like, hey, they're well beyond like the parent, like their kids are adults now and stuff like that. And part of it's like I want to know, hey, does it get better?
It does, Grant. It does.
I know that this is a short
years
season.
Are slow. You know, the days are long, but the years are short. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I always like to be projecting forward too. But no, that's good. I don't have too much more to ask you about. I have lots to ask you about, but we'd have to condense it into a shorter period of time. As I said, I believe, and I know you are a really thoughtful leader, and I want to know, like, you talked about like delegation is a big part of your freedom today.
Right.
What are you looking for in the people that you surround yourself with? Like, again, I know you're intentional about a lot of things, so I know you're probably intentional about this too.
Yeah. So like my first hire, I did it really, really wrong. Like just so wrong.
Yeah.
No process, no due diligence. Somebody I knew needed a job, and I was like, come work for me. So that was it. Like that was the whole king of it. And I had to fire that person. And that was up there with putting my dog down. Like it just, that was so tough,
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not going to let this happen again. So I got like super intentional about a hiring process. And you and I have talked about this over the years, but I looked at Strategic Coach. I looked at their hiring process. I looked at Dave Ramsey and his hiring process. Those were the 2 main ones that I looked at. And then kind of like got inspiration from theirs and then kind of made my own and brought it all together and created a 12-step fireproof hiring method, which is a little bit of a strong claim, fireproof, but it kind of helps me think through who I need and who I'm looking for. But if I take a step back, and I'm not going to sit here and walk you guys through my 12 steps, but conceptually, I'm looking for somebody who's teachable, moldable, coachable, who has batteries included, right? Self-starter.
Yeah.
I'm looking for people with great character. If they've got great character and great ethics, that's what I want, especially in this business. You know what I mean? Because we don't have the greatest reputation, financial advisors. We're down there with like the used car salesmen and the lawyers and the politicians. It's like how the general public, views a trusted financial advisor. Like we feel the help we can get. And so we've got to come in here with like a very high commitment to ethics and morals, right? So
totally.
And then what I'm really looking for is some kind of passion, some kind of interest in serving others and having some kind of finance story themselves, like that they can really relate to, and a lot of us have made progress based on the means we were raised with. Right. And so, but what was that like for you, and how much stress did that create for you and your family or for you on your own when you're independent? And what have you learned since then to reduce that financial anxiety and to make better decisions? And are you excited about helping other folks do that? Right.
Yeah.
So it's not as much the experience or expertise that I'm initially looking for. It's more of the character and of that passion story and that teachability to, adopt our systems and our processes underneath our cultural fit. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. I think like you, like I kind of haphazardly went through it in the beginning, and I got lucky, cause actually, one of my first people I work with, she's still with me today.
Oh my gosh.
So
that's so cool.
Yeah. But I think I was lucky more than smart, to be honest.
Right.
Cause they haven't all worked out along the way, obviously. And then only now do we have a much more intentional process around it. But I would echo that character. Again, when I was having a chat just today with Callie on my team here, and she moved out at 18 years old, and learned money habits kind of the hard way through life. Life teaches you a lot, but I'm that character building stuff. I couldn't ask for a better character for us here at Endeavor than Callie.
That makes
the table,
makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah, exactly. So, I got one last question for you before we go. And before I let you go, more importantly, where do you want to be in 5 years from now? With all this in mind, everything we talked about today, where do you want to be I won't say 10 years, because 10 years is too big. And I think you'll be running something on the moon by then, just the way you
we'll be with Elon on some kind of Mars or moon settlement. So so you said 5 years from now?
Yeah. Where are you in 5 years?
Well, we kind of run on that 10X framework on growing our AUM. You and I have talked about that forever. So that actually puts us super duper close to our trajectory of hitting about $1 billion under management. We've been on that path for 15 years now, so that we're still on track. So so that would be great, to be entrusted with more resources, impacting more families, impacting more of the team members that I'm able to hire and create careers people love. And then obviously being able to do more impact for the community. So I think I've shared this with you before. We've been trying to get our girls to all 50 states. Including Canada. Knocked that out when we came to see you. So we're getting really close.
No 51st state stuff on this pod. Okay?
I didn't say it. But I just said the 50 states plus Canada. And we did
There you go.
Canadian Highway, and we got to see you, and we love Canada. We're just at Disney's Epcot, and we spent a lot of time in Canada. We like first. So we were just in Canada. It was just at Epcot. So
nice.
A little warmer climate than usual in Canada. But anyway, so I think there's some travel plans to see more of this beautiful earth that we have to enjoy. I think there's just more influence on the families we're impacting, the employees that we have here, and reinvesting in our community. So, and then you know this, but I'm kind of working on a new book and want to continue to create content like this, that can not just impact our clients or investors, but maybe some of our industry as well. So
I love that. I don't think I have shared this with you yet, but your 50 states goal for your families inspired me. Because like like Sam and I used to travel a lot pre-kids. We still travel now, but it's like obviously a little different with the kids. But I'm like, I really want our kids, this to be a part of their lives as well. And we set a goal is by the time they graduate, I want to visit all 7 continents.
Dang, I love that.
Just to put their little feet now, but their feet on all 7 continents by then. But this all came from like you inspired me with your trips, man, to be honest. And I'm like, so I told my dad that the other day, and he's just like, whoa, that's a tough one. And I'm like, I know, but we're starting. I was like, wait, JL's 5, Max is 2. I mean, like, I got time. Like, as long as we plan this out, we can do it. We'll save Antarctica for the end because it's gonna probably be the most expensive one. We'll save Antarctica for the end, but that's what we're gonna do. But
and I had a client go and did the cruise that breaks the ice, and they get to go on the, and then the penguins that they interact with, like, walk right by you on a path in the snow. Like, she showed me these pictures and videos. I'm like, that's so cool. So I
know my parents did it, but I was like, my parents waited till their like late 60s and 70s to do a lot of these things, right? And I'm like, you know what? There's no guarantee. So it's like, let's try to do them younger, and when we're mobile, we can enjoy them and like see where we go from there. But that like literally all came from your goal. But I love it. Like, travel gives you so much perspective on life and what's important and how other people live. And I know I want that for my family too. So I love it.
Just what we've learned from traveling is that there are wonderful, nice people everywhere.
Yeah. 100%.
Everywhere. Just incredible people. It gives you hope for humanity. You just sit there and listen to the news all day. You think everybody else sucks. That's not true. Not true at all.
No.
Not true at all.
I agree with you. All right, man. Okay, thank you so much. I think this has been awesome. I think our listeners are going to get a lot out of this. And, just thanks again for spending some time with me today.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure, man. Appreciate it. I always enjoy time with you.
All right, man. Okay, take it easy.
Right. See you, brother.
Thank you.